Welcome to our 5th edition of Lending in the Pacific Northwest. Having my wine, and I want to talk about a type of property that's appealing to many first-time home buyers, and that is condos. The reason why is because many first-time home buyers fall in the millennial Gen Z generation, right? They're not into having acreage. Some are, but a lot of them would like something that requires little to no maintenance, don't want to have to mess with taking care of a yard and all that stuff. A condo is good for that. A condo provides amenities. The condo is a part of a HOA, homeowners association, which part of their agreement and part of the dues that you pay go towards the maintenance of the common areas. So you don't have to do a lot of maintenance yourself. On top of that, the property taxes tend to be a lot cheaper. Insurance, the building, the project itself is covered under a master policy. So as far as insurance is concerned, you just have to concern yourself with the walls-in coverage, the contents inside your dwelling. The building itself is taken care of. So that tends to lower your insurance premium. It all sounds great, right? And the bonus is, for people who, when I tell them median price for something that they want is over $400,000 here in Clark County, Washington, or Portland, Oregon, and they're looking at single family residences, they're like, geez, Paul, I'm doing minimum down payment. My payment's gonna be $3,000 or something a month. That's not gonna work for me. So they're looking at condos in the $250,000 to $300,000 range, and they're thinking, oh, this is great, Paul, I can afford this. But then you think about it, I give this caveat, look at the HOA dues, because all condos are gonna have HOA dues to cover the maintenance that's gonna be done in the common grounds and some of the other amenities. They could range between $275 a month and maybe $500, $600. Let's just say the HOA dues are $400, $450. That is the equivalent of another $75,000 in purchasing power. For example, if you see a condo that's for $250,000 and the HOA dues are $450, that's just like buying a single family home for $325,000 with no HOA dues. So I hope that makes sense. So you have to be careful about that. The other big caveat, and I've run across this many times, is when you are looking to purchase a condo, lenders go through the standard underwriting process with you, the buyer, with your credit, income, assets, debt to income, all that stuff. The other piece to this is the condo project itself has to meet lending guidelines. And I can tell you, and I'd hate to say this, but when there's a listing out there that'll say something like accepts financing types, it accepts cash, FHA, VA, conventional, you can't always go by that. You think you should, but I gotta tell you, the ugly truth is some of these listing agents don't know enough about their condo to know if it meets financing guidelines. Now, if you're going FHA or VA, pretty cut and dry. There are websites that you can go on to each one of these. Here's the link to FHA, right there. When you get on that link, you go to a drop-down list. You plug in the county, state, city, and then go to that one drop-down and go to where it says approved, and then hit submit or whatever, enter. It's going to pull you a list of all FHA approved condos. Now, the key is you want to look at the expiration date, because it does no good if it's approved, but it shows that the approval expired in 2022. You want to look and make sure that that expiration date is, I would say, late 2025 or beyond, to make sure. Because like I said, if it's not if that approval is expired, then you have to ask the HOA company, HOA for that condo, hey, have you renewed your FHA eligibility? If they said no, you're not going to get that condo approved. Or you can do what's called a spot approval, but it is very, very difficult. The bottom line is, if that is not showing FHA approved, then it doesn't matter what that listing says, that it accepts FHA. You're gonna have a hard time. So be aware of that. Same thing with VA. You do the same thing. You go on, here's a VA website, click on it. Then input all the same stuff, city, county, state. Then go to that drop down and do approved. Hit submit, enter, whatever. It's gonna pull up all the condos in that area that are gonna show VA approved. Make sure that expiration date is beyond today's date. Or, in this case, if you're looking a few months down the road or whatever, you wanna make sure that that expiration date is late 2025 or beyond. So those are the two things. Conventional is a little bit more tricky, because with conventional, then it all comes down to, we on our end as a lender, underwriters or processors can go in the Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac websites, and it can tell you there if it's completely FHA or Fannie or Freddie approved. If it is, you should be good to go. However, unless you have your automated underwriting findings that are not going to require like any kind of review, there is going to still be some extra work that you need to do. And there's two things. The desktop underwriter or loan prospector findings, which are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac findings on your automated approval. Any loan officer, a competent one, should be able to go through those and read them. It's going to tell you if you need a limited or a full review. Either way, a questionnaire needs to be filled out. And this is the very important piece, because how that questionnaire is filled out and the answers provided are going to determine if that condo project is going to meet guidelines. The biggest thing when it comes to condos is you cannot have more than 50% of them be non-owner occupied. In other words, 50%, 51% or more must be the person purchased those and they're living there. The other 49% are rentals, so to speak. So you have to have at least a 51 to 49% ratio, okay? The other piece to this is that you cannot have, on Fannie Mae, you cannot have one person, one individual, own more than 10% of the units in the complex. Freddie Mac goes up to 15%. What that means, you try to go conventional. If there's one person in a 100-unit complex that owns 11 of those units, that's not going to meet Fannie Mae guidelines. It'll meet Freddie Mac, but not Fannie Mae. Let's say one person owns 22 units in a 100, or 16 units, I should say, in a 100-unit complex. Guess what? It's not going to cut it. It's not going to go conventional. So remember that. Assuming that you meet that test. The other test is the condo cannot be in litigation. If it's in litigation, that is 90% of the time going to kill this transaction. Now, there are certain circumstances. I have closed one. We did close one recently where it wasn't litigation. That's because the litigation had reached the settlement point. They were at the point where the litigation was completed or close to completed, and what the litigation was about wasn't affecting the soundness of the property itself. It wasn't affecting the building's livability. But that is a exception to the rule. Just know that if a condo is currently in litigation and they are the defendant, not the plaintiff, you're probably not going to get that financing. So you have the one person owning more than X number of units issue. You have the percentage of owner occupied and non-owner occupied. Also have the litigation piece. The other pieces, if there's any commercial space there, it cannot be over 25%. So, assuming you meet that piece, then on a full review, you have to look at the budget. And condo projects should be providing you a budget along with, it basically shows HOA dues. And you have to make sure that at least 10% of the insurance premiums are accounted for and have 10% allocated towards reserves. So you take the total budget of reserve allocation divided by the assessment income, and as long as 10% of that is in reserves, money set aside for future projects, stuff like that, then you're okay. That test, you also cannot have more than 15% of the units that are over 60 days delinquent on their HOA dues. So if you have a 100 unit project, if 16 of those units have HOA dues that are 60 days and beyond past due, that's not going to cut it either. So there are a lot of tests or a lot of documentation we have to collect if the underwriting results are requiring a full review. If it's a limited review, then all we need is a questionnaire and the master insurance. But if it's a full review, we're gonna need the budget, bylaws, that questionnaire filled out extensively, master insurance. So, moral of the story is, even though a listing might show that a condo is eligible and FHA, VA, and conventional are allowed, you can't go off of that. I'm dead serious. You would think so, but I'm telling you right now, I've been burned by this before, where I had a deal about 5 years ago where this one person owned like 25% of the units in the project. I found that out later on, and I basically went to the listing agent and I said, "Hey, I don't understand this. Why did you list this as this is eligible for financing?" He goes, "I didn't know. I didn't know that was not the case. I didn't know that the condo project couldn't have more than 25% of them, or more than 10 to 15% of them be owned by one person." And I'm like, "I'm sorry. If you're a real estate agent, you need to know that stuff. You can't be listing stuff. You can't be listing properties for sale unless you know that it meets certain financing." So again, you have to find a competent lender that knows these guidelines when it comes to condos. You cannot 100% rely on these listing agents to know everything about it. If you really want to get down to the heart of it, the best thing to do when you want to make an offer on a property, before you commit to it, you ask that listing agent to provide you what's called a resale certificate. for the condo and get a copy of the CC&Rs, the bylaws, ask them for the budget and the financials, and ask those questions. If the condo's been in litigation, and ask for the HOA contact person and ask those questions up front and vet it before you make an offer, because you do not want to be in a situation where you're in contract all of a sudden, we're asking for this condo information. We get the questionnaire back. It's like, oh my God, it's in litigation right now. Or, oh my God, Joe Schmo owns 20% of the units in this place. And then next thing you know, you got to terminate the contract. You don't want to get to that point. So just know these caveats. Know that one, HOA dues, even though the home price might be way less in a condo than a single family residence, just know that HOA dues of, let's say, $400, it's the equivalent of 75 grand in purchasing power on a single family home, and $700, let's say HOA dues, that's close to 100 grand purchasing power. So just know that the HOA dues do factor in your debt ratio, and know that those are the equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars extra in a single family unit. So there's that piece. And then know that lenders are not only underwriting you, they are underwriting the condo project. You have to know that the condo project is going to be financeable. So hope this was helpful. Any questions about this, feel free to reach out to me. It's my email address, my phone number. And if you like this information, if you feel this is helpful, please feel free to subscribe to this page, like this. And aside from that, good luck with your home shopping and take care.